Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Good to see you. It's Thursday, another day, wonderful time in the neighborhood, depending on how big your neighborhood may be. So how the heck are you? Good to see you. Thank you for joining in. Um, let's see. Hope all went well yesterday. Yes, thank you, Brad. Back to the bohemian look. We So yeah, first impression is everything. So hello everyone, how you doing? Um, so how's life? Hello all the moderators. Chelsea Rose, we're going to get Chelsea on here next couple of Friday nights. This Friday night we have the Queen of Quartz, Karen. Looking forward to having more conversations since I think we're all just a little bit more educated. Some of you already were. The rest of us are just catching up. And then next Friday night, Doc Ram. We all know that's going to be fun. And we're going to have some interesting discussions with Dr. Miller. So, yeah. And 12 days until, I guess, the 25th, Christmas and whatever it is for everyone else. And I think there's only 2 more Thursdays and this year's gone. Out of here. So welcome everyone. Thank you, moderators. Let me just invoke a blessing of favor. Someone said, well, blessing has a mixed meaning. Well, listen, intent accounts for a lot. And so this is a covering that I speak over you. And having favor over and on your life is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. So I just invoke favor upon your life today. And may there be nothing missing, nothing broken. That which was stolen be returned sevenfold, and that which was broken, may it be mended as new. We all have things in our lives that we'd love to mend. And anyone who says they didn't, what planet are you from? It's the journey. Yesterday's video apparently was even a little too strong for YouTube. They currently have it under review because of content. The truth sometimes hurts. And not that we were actually saying that anything is absolute. All that was being said, it was an alternative thought. I'm telling you, folks, it's a coming. Yeah, free speech. Yeah, probably not so. I don't know. I read today somewhere, actually, a politician, no less. And this is what scares the bejeebas out of me when you have a politician saying, well, yeah, I think we should regulate speech. I don't know. Where'd the whole life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness go? And the whole First Amendment thing, Second Amendment thing. And by the way, speaking of amendments, see how good that was? That's what you call a segue in the business. Tonight, over on the artistfirst.com radio network, I will be doing my show, The Steiger Perspective, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can figure out in between, and the rest of you, it's somewhere on the clock. Going to be talking about it. In fact, this is going to be played out tonight as a breaking news story. So when you listen tonight, we're going to be talking about the 25th Amendment, and I'll guarantee you'll want to listen to it. It'll be a place, because there I am not censored by the YouTube censors, and censorship is alive and well in America. We live in it's an illusion. We do not have free speech. And do you know that there's an app for a certain religion that if you insult their God, you can actually put this in, and I don't know where it goes, but yeah, folks, I mean, it's getting spooky. Um, so what's going on with our folks over in Sweden and Norway? Y'all got some weird stuff going on in the skies over there. I've had people, one individual particularly that has been sending me some pictures and weird stuff, man. By the way, speaking of that which is new, allow me, please, to show you this picture from, believe this is the orbiter called Peter, I think. This is a picture that was sent by the spacecraft, by the way, outside of Voyager, and Cassini. This is going to be one of the longest traveled spacecraft that we've got out there. So this is heading to the sun. It's going to take 7 years for it to get there. And this is the thing that I always ask people to consider when you're taking a side or a position. So if we were living in a plane, as some contend, that's a flat Earth, why do we have to, and the reason why I know, I have neighbors who do the calculations on these spacecrafts. That's what they do for a living. And complicated math has to deal with gravity, inertia, building speed, using gravity. Yeah, it's not a straight shot. So anyway, this picture here, 16.9 million miles from the sun still. Remember, it's done a pretty good job in traveling. It's fast. One of the faster craft that we have launched. This is the corona of the sun. They say 17 million miles out. The spacecraft is not 17 million miles from the sun. It's still got a long ways to go. But in any case, this is Jupiter. Now, I find this picture interesting in as much, okay, I get that that's Jupiter. You can really see the impact of even a quiet sun. You've got strange stuff. Let me amplify this up so you can see, because this thing here, I found it more fascinating. We've got this, obviously something streaking up here, but check this out, folks. So if this is Jupiter, then what are we seeing here? What are we seeing up here? Now, I thought, well, maybe this would have been a composite, time-lapsed picture with composite images giving us one. Well, you could get then an artifacting, true, of, where it would give you, but typically you're not going to have it in front. You'll have it going reverting. But what's odd here is that, okay, if I was to take this trajectory and work it out, this planet Jupiter would be, let's see. Yeah, it would be way off the ecliptic plane. Yeah. So I don't know. Interesting picture, huh? Just thought I would share it. So give me a second as I drive this bus and as I pull myself back into frame, smile. How many of you smile during the day? How many of you laugh? Start keeping a record. Now, I asked this question yesterday. There were people who said they haven't laughed. They can't remember the last time they laughed. I mean, really laughed. Laughed from the soul, the gut, you know. There are a lot of sad people out there, ladies and gentlemen. My event that I went to, wow, you know, it's sad. And of course, a personality like mine that comes into a room, I mean, I'm going to wake you up even if you're going to go back to sleep. As it was told to me by a couple of people. Who are you? And where did you come from? Because I always love asking the questions that really gets people into that, you know, cognitive dissonance thing going, what did you just ask? and it's, you know, that's what we're supposed to do. As light beings, of which I contend we are. This goes in with, as I continue to see whatever this is, consciousness, then that implies immortality. Even if you take the concept and the construct of a reward and punishment construct, that in itself implies immortality, just two different polarities of the same plane. So, okay, I think we can contend that. I say that we're gods. No one can prove me wrong. No one has proved me wrong on that. And I always like it when some people try to bring in their Bible and I go, well, wait a minute. And then I take them to the book of Isaiah and the book of Psalms and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, but it's written right there. Oh, well, you know. So, well, you know, Brad, that does bring up a point is, you know, Planet X. A lot of people say it's here. I don't know. So consciousness. So I contend we're light beings. Actually had a woman come up and tell me, she said, sir, she says, I want to say something to you. And I said, yes. And she came and she said, you know, she said, as you were walking around in the room, she said, she said, I swear there was like this light that was on you. And I said, well, it's on us all. Hot tea, folks. Bingle Spice. May I recommend it? Decaffeinated, lovely blend of those wonderful flavors of cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves. Help me become the house of darkness in my inherited orbit. Well, you know, light is what it is, you know. So isn't that odd? And I think that that's just contending with the fact of, I think it's what your spirit is showing. I mean, people who are oppressed, and I know what it's like to be depressed. Sucks. It sucks big time, doesn't it? Because not only with depression, is it depression, you're oppressed. That sucks. I now know that it's an energy force. And it can't be treated with drugs. It can't be treated with alcohol. It can't be treated with pharmaceuticals. And it really can't be treated with just religion. It's an energy force that you have to learn to repel. And again, it's because of what we look at ourselves as. I dare say that if most of us, when we greet strangers, would High Octane Express. All right, Brad, I got to do a show here. Come on. So I think that the light is just, the candle's been put under the bushel, so to speak, using a much old metaphor. Let your light shine. That there was a group back in the 60s and early 70s called the Fifth Dimension. They had a hit song called Aquarius and quite a few. But one of the things about Marilyn McCoo was that she was a very positive individual. Her and her husband later became ministers in the LA area. But the point being, back then it was like, well, you've got to let your light shine, folks. There's enough darkness and enough negativity to suck you dry, like a balloon of helium, and you're left with this shriveled, prune, and you're going, wait a minute, that's my energy. So when I talk about that which has been stolen, think about all the energy that's been stolen out of your life. You got to if you don't hold both seen and unseen accountable, then there's no accountability in the afterlife, right? That's a thought. I mean, I love this whole thing that when you really examine karma and you study it, it's a zero-sum concept. Apparently, you can have too much good karma and yet also have too much bad karma. And I'm going, well, now I'm totally confused. That's like a married couple that have gotten to the point in their relationship where they're having hallway sex. And you know what that is, right? Well, if you don't, send me an email and I'll tell you. But anyway, so we get into this strange thing about consciousness. So meditating. And when I meditate, it's literally like you get into almost this place. I'm in this place that it's fast. I can't see where it begins and where it ends, but I'm sitting in there. And it's like my thoughts are being projected on this huge banner screen, going across New York, Times Square. And it causes me to focus. And so consciousness. I've done a lot of programs on consciousness, but it never occurred to me that maybe consciousness is the trap. Yeah. So we don't see it that way. But I contend we have wrestled as a species to, say, what happens when you sleep? Now, we say we enter in and scientifically we can measure the brain. We still can't measure the soul. We still can't weigh the spirit. Now, I know they've done studies about there is that 21 to 28 ounces at the point of death. I get that. But right now, so when we sleep, we say, well, we fall or become into a state of unconsciousness. Okay. We only say that because, we're not conscious. You get knocked out, you're unconscious. You fall asleep, you're unconscious. Now, philosophers, theologians, ideologists have pontificated, what is it? And isn't it odd that if you keep the human mind awake and not allow it to detoxify itself, that it'll start going insane. So we fear death is when I ask people, what are you most afraid about death? And yes, I'm that guy that will work a cocktail party and come up and ask you that question directly. You should have seen their look I had when I asked people if God's a Christian. But anyway, I digress. Hey, Raven Wolf, how are you seeing? I haven't seen you in a while. So good to see you, Anna. We got to do a show. So Anna, I'm thinking about maybe we could do a show on New Year's Eve. Maybe get Sue and Brad and some other people, Brian. So anyway, I digress here, folks. So death, for most people, the biggest fear is no more consciousness. The second thing is pain. And those are the two things that people fear most about death. It's going to hurt, and then they're not going to have any memory of themselves. And as I told one couple yesterday, I said, whoa, wait a minute. So you're afraid it's going to hurt, but you're afraid you're not going to have a conscience. I said, well, you just canceled each other out. So I said, you've got nothing to fear at all. Because even if it did hurt, you're not going to remember it. Just like birth. So consciousness. Is consciousness spirituality? Does spirituality have a place in consciousness? Is there such a consciousness of different states of consciousness? Obviously, I just discussed one, sleep, unconscious. How do we know that this is the only state of consciousness yet to be experienced? I contend, madam and sir, that we look at this from a very narrow point of view. We assume consciousness after the birth, and it's not death, it's really birth. As I told someone in an email, I said, well, think about it. If birth is life, then there is no afterlife because we call this life. And then we measure everything according to this. But yet, by our own reckoning of our own reasoning, this thing that we call life, which I call death, is very short-lived. Less than 10 decades for most of us. Yet we contend the afterlife is eternal. So would not that reason alone state within its very context of the statement itself, say that there is a different state of consciousness than this? This consciousness is merely contended to the physical, which brings me to my next point. So we get all wrapped around the axle on this about the physical flesh. Again, as I wrote one of our people who have been with me for a long time, Bobby, I said, well, wait a minute, let's talk about this. If the physical flesh is so to be gross or so, I got urges, well, you can't have that, you get into all this thing, right? And you hear, well, you got to pummel the flesh. You got to discipline the flesh. You've got to reject the flesh. What? If that statement is so true, then why does God want to be physical? Why do the gods of the pantheon all want to be physical? Why do they want to have physical bodies? Why do spiritual forces want to influence physical bodies? If this is such a low, debased form of reality, then why would the spirits even give a crap? Move on. They're going to go, if the physical flesh was so bad, then why all the spiritual energy on influencing us? Bet you won't answer that, will you? Why does God take a physical form? So much to impregnate, which would be by all description an adolescent, so that the story could be that there was a physical birth. No. No. If that was the case, then there would be no influence here at all. They'd leave us the hell alone. Now, there's something else going on. Again, religion, philosophy, theology, ideology, whatever the case may be, has failed to find the answer. We have been at this, the written record, for 10,000 years, probably millions, and we still get it wrong over and over and over again. We chase our tail around and around and around. Everything is symbolized at the occultism, paganism, religion, everything round and around and around. If that's defined by consciousness, because if it isn't, then how does it exist? My God, think about it. It's so narrow and so constricted in its reality, I don't see how they can exist, but apparently that's what it would seem to be. I don't get it. And I know everyone has their answers. It amazes to me how many people always seem to have the answers about the questions I pose, but yet they never do anything to back it up. It's very quaint and casual to leave a casual remark or sometimes a smart-ass remark. And that's just how it is. But the point is, one person wrote me, they said, you invoke more cognitive dissonance in your 1-hour programs than, she said, I've seen, and she said, a very long period of meeting people. I said, yeah, but isn't it fun? There's a consciousness. Yeah. Different states of consciousness, altered states of consciousness. You get drunk, you're in an altered state of consciousness. You get high, you're in an altered state of consciousness. You take drugs, medication, pain pills, whatever it may be. Sex, you could go in on and on. Religious experiences. I know women and men who are addicted to religious experiences. They couldn't wait till Sunday to fall at the altar and to have this whatever. Altered states of consciousness. Yet, we can't define what a normal state of consciousness is. That would define then that consciousness in its foundation is both lucid and elusive to comprehend. It means it's fluid. Would it not? Think about it. Medicine. Even if you go back and you look at the Hebraic story, in fact, you can go back and look at all the different stories, all the cultures that had high priest, shaman, seers. They all got into a state of consciousness, altered state of consciousness, in order to communicate with the deities. Yeah. So if this And I present my case to you, sir and madam. I respect you. Tell me where I'm wrong. The CIA, black ops, governments spend billions, maybe trillions, for mind control, population control. That's an altered state of consciousness in its purity, the single block from which it's built upon, altering or dominating consciousness. You become, let's say, overwhelmed by the religious experience. I've had them. They're powerful. It's still an altered state of consciousness. I began to realize that all holy books are merely automatic writings, altered states of consciousness. Every religion is a different state of consciousness. Apparently, we can't handle what a state of consciousness is. All through our history, we have been anesthesiologists. We anesthetize ourselves. From the very beginning, man made alcohol. Why? To alter the state of consciousness. Man began to find the herbs that began to alter states of consciousness. Today, our society is so replete with altered states of consciousness drugs. We call these antidepressants, anti-anxiety. You just go right on through the list. But yet, people like me are ridiculed. People like you are ridiculed. We think outside. We question. We challenge. We don't back down. Tom Petty, wherever he is, hope he's out there making more music. You know, as he said, you can drag me right through the gates of hell. I ain't going to back down. I'll question every God, every religion, every theology, every philosophy, because thus far, none seem to work. I don't see any utopian here on this planet. Where's Shangri-La? Where's Elysium? You would think if you've had thousands of years, folks, not thousands of days, thousands of years, that conscious state should have been perfected at some point. It's more fragmented now. And when you see the many different states of consciousness at play on a single stage, holy shit. I've dropped LSD that has never been this weird. I've talked to the spirits. I've been out there. It ain't this weird, folks. And this is getting weirder. Now, I don't know if exit visas are imminent, but we certainly know we all carry one. It's just, when is the number coming up? But if we can't get this, at least having the debate in our own consciousness, then how do you know your consciousness will not be subjugated on the other side? I mean, the only other contention here is that we have two buckets to deal with where consciousness is concerned. Consciousness is either created at the same point the spirit and soul is created from anew, no past, no history, but created anew at that very moment and becomes sentient and becomes conscious. Or we have consciousness that morphs apparently in different planes, different dimensions, and in different ways, that as it enters into planes, it apparently neglects its memory, because I think somehow memory would then taint the experience. And the experience here would be this, and then we exit out of this plane, and apparently, I don't know, we collect all of the memories? What? How can you have so many past lives? I mean, what, does the personality stay the same? I mean, hell, if you go by the theory, we're all schizophrenics. No one knows anyone. We don't even know ourselves. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe we're born into a reality of schizophrenia. We take on many different personifications, you know. We can really get into different modes. That's why sometimes actors are like so cool, man. That's why we really kind of dig those guys up there. Yeah. Or you just happen to fall in love with that guy, and now I really want to show him my good side, you know. You see? Who plays the role of that? Is that consciousness? Is consciousness immersed into personality? Or is personality immersed into consciousness? Again, we define gods. Are gods consciousness? Is God the ultimate consciousness? Is that consciousness stationary? Is it static? Or is it dynamic? If something stays the same, then that's death. I can't see how the universe, the all, does not stop changing, ever changing. That would imply that there are multi-dimensions, multi-phases of consciousness. Do you remember who you are in your dreams? Seriously, when you dream, are you Lori Chavez? Lori, when you dream, do you dream that I am Lori Chavez? Do you address yourself as Lori? When you speak to others in your dreams, do you speak of yourself in your first, second, third, fourth, fifth person? How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as though you're the director, seeing yourself out playing in a stage in your dreams? Isn't it the same in this conscious state? We've got to have these discussions. We don't have these discussions. We'd rather entertain. The masses would rather be continually in a state of where they're in an altered state. Think about it. Consciousness. Is it a trap? Why is it that we so identify ourselves to our memories only? We don't define ourselves by the future. We have a difficult time defining ourselves in a first, second, or third person in the present. But yet, we always identify with our past. How does consciousness do that? So let me show you something here. I believe this is the one I want to show. No, that is not the one. Hold on one second, folks. I want to pull up. Okay, there we go. Yeah. I'm juggling as good as I can. That's what they would say. Okay, so let's talk about By the way, YouTube did not like this video either. So I wrote this some time ago. As you can see, 721. I wrote, I think all too often we become narrowed vision, which from a certain point of view can be massive, but no less narrow. It could be mankind has made these religions and spirit stories of demons, ghosts, and gods because we do not want to be faced with the hardcore, cold reality. We are alone, adrift, and sanctioned off from all others. Our species has known this almost from the beginning, and the horror of that reality is so great. It is why we cannot remember our origins, our beginnings, where we came from, and who made us. Our species became anesthesists, administering to our own selves, our own individual formula to cause us to forget. And the cycle stops once you leave this earth because there is nothing else after this. But we cannot face that fact, so we invent our stories of a life greater and more peaceful than the one we had. Even hell is still life after death, and better than there to be nothing after this. Yeah, pretty intense, isn't it, folks? So we have to talk about that. Is there another reality? I mean, face it, folks, no one's come back and taken the mic and the camera and say, now I can tell you absolutely this is how it is when you die because I'm still dead. We haven't seen that. I think we'd love to, but we haven't. So, folks, this was made last July. As you can see the date in July. Think about what's happened since then. I saw this and my jaw dropped. Yeah. Seems like we get signals. Alan Watts, my mentor. I love this guy. When I stepped through the other side, man, this dude, if you haven't listened to Alan Watts, may I give you the best gift of your life. Listen to him. Alan wrote, "We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time, in which the so-called present moment is felt as nothing but an infinitesimal hairline between a causative past and an absorbingly important future. We have no present. Our consciousness is almost completely preoccupied with memory and expectation. We do not realize that there never was, is, nor will be any other experience than present experience. We are therefore out of touch with reality." It would appear that it's out of the nothingness from which everything comes. Everything. Maybe that's the fear, that we go back into the nothingness, that our experiences merely become a record, a collective thought, to the ghost of what never can be again. Or is God the nothingness? A state of consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. Is implies sentience. Is it alive? All numbers begin and end with zero. Nothingness. Mathematics starts with an empty set. What's inside an empty bag? Nothing. But that's something on which all mathematics is founded upon. A state of consciousness. Just that quick. You know, this is what scares us. We're constantly looking. When you dream, are you looking into the nothingness? What are you looking into? How does it approach you? How do you approach it? Is it consciousness, your consciousness, that is conscious of another conscious within the dreamscape? Is this what we search for in the darkness? Yeah, it's weird, folks. We try to find dark matter as basically what it is, the nothingness. Nothing is more fertile than emptiness. You see, we just don't look at this from all angles. It's so different. You yourself are the eternal energy which appears as this universe. You didn't come into this world, you came out of it, like a wave from the ocean. I contend that that's what happens to us. If consciousness is alive, if it is sentient, then that means it changes, it expands, it grows. It can't be stopped. But it's not reliant nor dependent upon its memories. For the memories are just that. It's a phase through which consciousness goes through. So, there you go. Yeah. Welcome to the Philosopher Hour. These are deep discussions. Most don't want to have them, not even on their deathbed. But I would rather have had this debate with myself, won and lost many times, before that moment comes, than to be ignorant and have to begin to have the debate. Well, Mr. Shawnee, you can go with some of the physicists. That's exactly, I got that actually from Cornell. You could see that where I left the reference. It's that questions of Schrödinger's cat. Is the cat alive or is the cat dead? Same thing. And is the bag empty or is the bag full? Time. Does time exist without the observer? Is the observer just merely a fragment of what time projects itself to be, but time is no more than consciousness itself, seeking a place in which it can imprint itself? Is a spirit consciousness? Is that how we define consciousness in itself? I don't know. I contend I'm a light being. I had a vision of this. One of the things that I had a gifting in when I was in the Christian religion, they called me, I was used in the gift of visions, gift of knowledge. I could see things. I had dreams that were quite remarkable. But in one dream, I knew I saw myself. I knew. And the thing is, I was walking with a companion who was a light being as well. It's like the image only appears on a light being to the observer that feels the energy of the light being. And that then is reflected back on the image of the light being. Does that make sense? Or am I giving away too much? Your form is that which you are most comfortable with. There are worlds which receive us. I contend many of us are here because we're here in training. There's something that the next mission, the next task requires. And boy, we could spend hours on that one, folks. But I can tell you, we are light beings. And I'll just share this, and it's on the record. It's in one of the past shows that is in the archives. But I had an experience a year ago in my shower, and my wife was here. We documented the whole thing. I was on the other side. It's not what they're telling you. At least for me, when I stepped through what I had in my hand, it was the most beautiful opalescent, what's the word I'm trying to think? Opal. And when I stepped through, there was my tribe. They were waiting for me. They knew my arrival, and I went to my place. And when I walked in, there was this console in front where I placed this opalescent stone in its place. And in it were all of my emotions and memories of this life experience. And I saw others, and I was greeted by the source. I mean, it was as real. In fact, when I came back to consciousness, man, it zapped me one. So anyway, folks, there we go. We're going to learn. We've got to ask these questions amongst ourselves. And whether you agree, disagree, or have other thoughts, it's important that you challenge yourself. It's important that you ask yourself these questions. And if you're a married couple, you should have this discussion amongst yourselves. You should have this discussion at the right and appropriate time with your children. Things would begin to improve. All right, folks. I hope it's been good. Thank you. Thank you all. May favor walk with you today in every way. Thank you for enriching my life. This has been fun. I've got volumes and volumes written on this, but I so enjoy sharing this. And, even with the thumbs down, it tells me that that's actually a good thing, because if the thumbs down is there, then that tells me it's really gotten to the cognitive point. And the cool thing about it is, folks, I get to live in their penthouse rent-free. Thank you, Lori. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Y'all are the best. And, we'll enjoy the time. Enjoy this holiday season, folks. Let me just emphasize something to you. No matter where you are at, enjoy this one. I mean, savor it like a fine piece of chocolate, or savor it as like that first drink of that cool, sweet water, is like you've been thirsty all day. Just absorb it. And let's just start beginning to realize that our consciousness is always aware of the present moment. We don't need to spend so much of our energy in anticipation of the future. We need to understand that this is now. Now will never be now again. And We'll make some far out memories, right? All right. I appreciate you folks. Y'all are the best. You really are. Thank you for enriching my life. I hope I've returned and enriched your life in some way, good or bad. I don't know. Someone said, well, how can enrichment be a bad thing? I don't know. I mean, I like chocolate, but you can get sick on chocolate. That's never happened to me, but I can see where that could happen. So maybe that's why it's too much of a good thing. Y'all are the best. I'm going to tell you, there are many of us right here that are light beings, and we're growing, we're learning from one another, we're coming together, and we're inviting others. And this is a community where love really is at work here. I mean, I've been in other channels where, holy crap, you felt like you were in a game of dodgeball. It's like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. So, but y'all make it fun. People love it. And it's because of you. So thank you. All right, folks, I'll see you tonight. Tune in, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Mountain, 9 o'clock Central. Artistfirst.com, Steiger Perspective. Folks, this is going to be interesting. The 25th Amendment. We'll just leave it at that. All right, folks, be good to yourself. We'll see you again tomorrow here. Tomorrow night, we've got Karen King, Queen of Quartz, coming. So looking forward to that. All right, folks, bye-bye.